Esta semana, Vice News presenta el centro de pruebas en primates más grande de Europa. Visitamos el centro y participamos en la discusión sobre si seguir o no experimentando en animales con fines de investigación científica y médica.
These animals will be infected with dengue fever virus.
Y después, viajamos a Camboya para conocer las condiciones en las que viven las mujeres que trabajan maquilando ropa para las grandes marcas internacionales, como una supuesta salida al tráfico sexual del que son víctimas. La ciencia moderna busca constantemente soluciones y curas a la gran variedad de enfermedades que afectan a la humanidad. Una importante cantidad de experimentos se hacen con animales. Y aunque existe una fuerte oposición a las pruebas realizadas con ellos, la ciencia todavía no tiene otra alternativa clara. Vice News tuvo acceso a las instalaciones de prueba en primates más grande de Europa, el Centro de Investigación Biomédica con Primates en Holanda, para conocer cómo funciona y cuáles son los retos de los científicos que trabajan en esta disciplina.
Vice News gained rare access to a not-for-profit science laboratory which tests some of the world's most deadly infections and diseases on live monkeys. The facility is called the Biomedical Primate Research Center, or BPRC, and they're allowing us to film inside to see with our own eyes if monkey testing and animal welfare can go hand in hand. Testing on non-human primates has led to breakthroughs such as a polio vaccine and treatments against HIV and AIDS. And the BPRC is the largest facility of its kind in Europe. It's considered to be one of the most forward-thinking and progressive research centers for housing and caring for its monkeys. Still the focus of animal rights activists who have continued to protest outside the center for the last 20 years. We wanted to understand why it is still necessary to develop life-saving drugs through experiments on live monkeys and how the animals are being treated.
Hi.
Good morning.
Gwen.
Hi, I'm Annette.
Nice to meet you. So where are we?
This is our breeding facility. We started to create these breeding groups that look much more like how you would find these groups in the wild. Out of the 1,600 animals in the BPRC, on average, only 10% move into experiments per year, meaning the structure and balance of the groups are left intact.
Do you also see the monkeys that go to the lab and that are being tested on?
Yes, I see those animals too, yeah. And that's very hard sometimes, but because I know that what we do is the right thing, I can handle that. In order to maintain the health of the monkey colony, every animal is screened by vets once a year.
Hey Jochie, hi. Heb jij al grote tanden gekregen? Nee hè? Nee. Nog een jaartje wachten.
We take a small hair sample, and with that hair sample we can measure cortisol levels. And cortisol is a measure for stress.
I was wondering, can they hear us right now?
No, I don't think that they
he's
can hear us. Yeah,
blinking.
Yeah, because he's anesthetized, but
He's not unconscious.
No.
It looks so easy and so painless, but then you forget that this monkey is highly sedated on ketamine. So do they get names as well as numbers?
Yes, this is the name, HISUP.
So this is HISUP 11118, done with tattooing.
Yes, give him some.
As part of the screening, all monkeys get tested for tuberculosis. Just like in humans, this is tested by injecting the subject with dead tuberculosis cells to see how the skin reacts.
Why do you do it in the eyelid?
Then we can see it. When you do them on the skin here, then it is walking in the cage that is different to see it than you do in the eye.
Do you find it scary at all to inject in an eyelid?
It's always scary.
Once the screening is complete, those selected for experiments are segregated and rehoused in a separate area.
Okay, so we just entered the training facility. This is where the selected monkeys are taken after they are tested. As you can see, it's really different from what we've seen before. The cages are significantly smaller. The monkeys that are brought here have never been here before, so their whole world is turned upside down. They're all confused and they're still partly sedated on ketamine.
We wanted to capture the intimate training of the primates, so we asked the staff to discreetly film their methods on small cameras. This training allows the monkeys to cooperate in experiments so that a use of force is no longer required. Once the monkeys are ready, they are selected for the experimental stage. We headed to meet Jeffrey, head of the alternatives department. Today he was working on creating more effective adjuvants. An adjuvant is applied with a vaccine to stimulate a stronger immune response and allow the body to better combat a pathogen.
And these adjuvants sometimes, they also cause adverse effects. So what we're working on is to get rid of those adverse effects. So we think we are on our way to developing something new, which is better than the old ones. And we hope that the animal has less pain from the new type of adjuvants that we're using. This is refinement. So this is the first step of alternatives. First we want to get procedures that are less harmful for the animals. Then we want to get better procedures, less animals, and then finally we want to replace the animals entirely.
To meet EU and US regulations, all medicines must first be successfully tested in 2 species of animals before moving into clinical trials on humans. According to the animal rights group PETA, every year in the US alone, more than 125,000 primates are used in experiments in labs like this one. One of the aims of the BPRC's Alternatives Department is to reduce the amount of monkeys proceeding to the experimental stages by developing alternative non-primate forms of testing.
So what we're trying to do is to replace the use of non-human primates in biomedical research.
And how does that work?
Mostly by cell culture. So we work our way back from the monkey. And finally, of course, you want to end up with the ability to mimic an entire monkey in a lab dish. So what we do is we grow cells in this type of dishes, this type of culture dishes. As you can see, there are 96 of those little wells in one of these plates. And in each of these wells, we can test a different drug. And what you get is this type of output. The green is the malaria parasite. So what we're looking at here is a way to easily quantify whether there are drugs that can inhibit the growth of these malaria parasites.
Could we say that every well in this pad, so it's 96 of them, represents a monkey?
Yeah, in a way you can, yeah. The protesters are probably on the same side as the people within the facility here. Everybody wants to no longer have to use the animals. The problem is, of course, that the people that work inside are working actively to try to do that. And the opinion of the people outside is probably that they think that enough is enough, that we should stop straight on and just accept the status quo and accept the type of therapies and medicines that we have now and leave it at that point. That would be the consequence, I would say.
These types of test tube experiments may one day offer an alternative to animal testing. But for the time being, the primary research model used by the BPRC is to experiment on live monkeys. And today there's a new trial beginning.
So we're going into the building where the animals are housed and they will be infected with the virus.
What kind of viruses do you infect them with in that facility?
In that facility we infect them with the highly contagious viruses or the more dangerous viruses for us. So that's where, for instance, the dengue, the West Nile, but also HIV research is going on.
So this freezer is completely filled with like the deadly diseases, if I'm right.
Well, deadly or very serious diseases. In this case, it's HIV.
Behind me, they're preparing the virus that they will inject into a monkey shortly.
These animals will be infected with dengue fever virus.
And is this a typical procedure?
It's a typical procedure for us for viruses, but it's the first time that we do this for dengue fever virus.
Dengue fever is a virus spread by mosquitoes, and currently there is no vaccine against it. Each year, the severe strain of dengue hospitalizes around 500,000 people worldwide. a large proportion of whom are children. The first stage in the process of infection is sedating the monkey. Humans share about 93% of their DNA with these macaque monkeys. But according to statistics released in 2006, 9 out of 10 experimental drugs still fail in clinical studies on humans after successful lab and animal testing.
So they went to sleep, then they checked the animal for a number of physical items, for instance temperature and body weight. And now they are going to infect the animal with the dengue fever virus.
This monkey will now be studied at close quarters by the team in the hope of developing a potential vaccine for dengue.
He will be put back in his cage and then he will wake up. But we keep a good eye on these animals. They are checked daily or twice daily even. And then if something happens that is not good, then we will interfere with that. One of the compromises that you have to make there. But there are animals that don't cope with it very well. And then sometimes it's that bad that we say that they won't go into studies, and we either depends, if we can put them in another group, they will go into a group, and otherwise they need to be euthanized.
That morning, one of the monkeys had been euthanized. After undergoing a series of tests, it could not be safely reunited with its breeding group. So to avoid a lifetime of solitary confinement, it was put to sleep. It was now being taken for autopsy, where its organs would be removed and passed on to the alternatives department.
Tom, can you tell us what we are going to see?
What you're going to see today is I'm going to do a complete section. A complete section on a rhesus macaque monkey. I take all organs, and when I have assembled everything, the organs goes to the histology department. And there they cut the organs and investigate it furthermore, make small pieces, and that's going to the pathologist. What I will do is I open the body. And then I opened the abdomen. Now what I'm going to do now is in the abdomen I take out the colon and the stomach. And then I have lots of space free for examination, other organs.
Monkeys here will end their lives on an operating table like this one, whether through natural causes or as a result of experimentation. Despite making significant ground on alternative trials, the BPRC are unable to put a time frame on how soon non-human primates could be replaced as test subjects. Without significant medical advances or change to regulations, animals will continue to be used like this, as a primary resource for developing new cures, vaccines, and medicines to help prolong human life.
Con el fin de reubicar y rescatar a las trabajadoras sexuales de Camboya, el gobierno implementó una agresiva campaña contra la trata de personas. Sin embargo, muchas mujeres aseguran que las autoridades las obligan a trabajar en una industria en la que las condiciones y los salarios son aún peores: la fabricación de ropa para las grandes marcas occidentales. El fundador de Vice, Suroosh Alvi, viajó a Nom Pen para hablar con quienes son y fueron prostitutas. También con autoridades y miembros de ONGs para investigar en qué situación se encuentran las mujeres que trabajan en este tipo de maquilas.
Over the years, Cambodia has become one of the world's capitals of sex tourism. It's cheap and available prostitutes attracting men from around the world.
The sex industry has different rungs to it. There's the streetwalkers that do the $5 blowjob. There are brothels, there's massage parlors, and then there are the bars where you go in, you get served drinks, and the girls will go home with you. There are tens of thousands of women who are doing that here in Cambodia.
The US government has long worried that many of these women were victims of human trafficking and put pressure on Cambodia to crack down. And since Washington provides some $600 million a year in development aid, the Cambodian government finally listened. In 2008, it launched an aggressive new anti-trafficking and prostitution campaign. But there have been reports that it was doing more harm than good, so we went to see for ourselves.
So we're out on patrol with the anti-trafficking unit from the Ministry of the Interior. We're going on a raid to get some women who have been illegally trafficked. That's all we know right now. They're taking their phones right now, so the girls won't call ahead to other operations, to other brothels. It's a very heavy scene right now. Oh my God, this is about as dark as it gets right here. Ugh. Where do they go now? What do you do with the girls?
And this is the crux of Cambodia's anti-trafficking program. Sex workers brought into police custody are given a simple choice: accept training for a new career or remain in custody indefinitely, vulnerable to abuse and shakedowns by corrupt police. With these options, most women choose retraining, almost always for work in Cambodia's booming garment industry. Since the Cambodian government started its crackdown in 2008, authorities claim to have rescued and retrained thousands of women from the sex industry for what at first glance seemed like better jobs. But we soon learned that many of these women didn't want to be rescued at all. At the end of this long abandoned train track is a makeshift squatter camp. It's the home to one of the rescued sex workers, a mother named Polly. After Polly's arrest, police released her into the custody of a local NGO that would prepare her for her new career. The NGO would train her for work in the garment industry, which employs 500,000 Cambodians and makes up 80% of the country's exports. At first, it sounded like an opportunity for a fresh start in Cambodia's biggest industry. The reality was very different.
So were you making any money while you were in the training?
ហើយខ្ញុំថាឲ្យរៀនអត់ចេះបើខ្ញុំនៅនឹងកូនខ្ញុំនៅក្រៅ13នាក់ហើយខ្ញុំនៅនឹងមានណាគេរកស៊ីចិញ្ចឹមកូនខ្ញុំ
We spoke to several women with similar stories, and they told us that life didn't get much better after they finally entered the workplace. Garment workers here get a base salary of $80 a month, the minimum wage. That's barely enough to feed a family a diet of rice alone and pay rent in a shack in Nom Pen or live in factory barracks like these. Sangs Raymond tries to support her family working long hours in a garment factory, but it's still not enough to get by.
How much is your rent for your house?
ជួផ្ទះគេឥឡូវមួយខែផ្ទះមួយខែសិត100000បងថ្ងៃណារហូតតែលុយទិញបាយកូនហូបមិនបានដែរហ្នឹងហើយជួនកាលក្នុងមួយខែជួនកាលកូនឈឺអញ្ចឹងដេកពេទ្យ 3-4 ថ្ងៃអញ្ចឹងប្រាក់ខែ80គឺកាត់ថ្ងៃដល់វាជាងអស់ហើយខាងងាររោងចក្រពិបាកណាស់ពូខ្ញុំឈរហើមជើងអស់ហើយមួយថ្ងៃវងងាកអញ្ចឹងសម្រាប់ពេលហូបបាយតែផ្លែតហូបបាយហើយនឹងដល់ម៉ោងទៀតហើយ
To make ends meet, she now moonlights as a prostitute every night, earning just $8 per customer.
If we look around the world where the garment industry is flourishing, what attracts the garment industry, it tends to be where the rule of law is weakest and where people are so desperately poor that en masse they're almost willing to work under any conditions.
David Welsh is an organizer at the Solidarity Center, a labor rights group out of the United States that's affiliated with the AFL-CIO.
It's not indentured slavery or servitude, but in a way it is. Throughout the supply chain, an incredible amount of money is being made by these brands. A significant amount of money is being made by the factories. The workers are nowhere near a living wage, and that's where the margins are.
Desperate for jobs and fearful of crackdowns by the authoritarian Cambodian government, garment workers have for years stayed quiet. But conditions have gotten so bad that they are now starting to push back. We're just outside the capital, where dozens of clothing manufacturers for Western brands sprawl out for miles. Hundreds of garment workers were picketing for a second day, and things were tense.
So these women are protesting and striking. The basic gist is they want to be paid more.
Just that morning, thugs had come and beaten some of the strikers with clubs, and that pushed the women to their boiling point.
So what? So what? So what? What do here?
We wanted to see the factory conditions that led these women to strike, but these factories are notoriously difficult to get into, especially with cameras.
Can you take me inside? Solidarity. We are not allowed in this factory, but if the workers all protect us, then we can go in. So they're taking us in, stirring up the pot a little bit. Security guy is making calls right now.
Before long, someone from management showed up to greet us.
You represent of them, then follow me to see what the trade is done.
We'd love to see it inside the factory. Normally, it is 3,000 women, nose to the grindstone, sitting here all day, every day, 6 days a week, for maybe $80 a month, and they're supposed to feed their families with that.
By all definitions, Cambodia's garment factories are sweatshops, literally. In some factories, there have been mass faintings, and women have been hospitalized by the hundreds. On the floor at Barry, we saw labels for H&M, Old Navy, Benetton, and Russell Athletics. Over several weeks, we reached out to all of these brands, but no one wanted to talk to us on camera. The management of the Barry factory told us that none of this was a problem at their shop, that they treated their workers well, and even paid them more than the minimum wage. And then, for some reason, they wanted me to be the one to convince their workers of all that.
So I think I hope you can explain to the worker.
Yeah, it's not appropriate for me to get involved in these contract negotiations.
I had no intention of being a mouthpiece of the factory management, so I took this opportunity to ask the workers directly what they are actually paid.
Your bosses here are saying that the minimum wage in this country is about $80, and that you are actually getting paid $175 to $200. Is that correct?
This entire dispute, which had led to the walkout and strike, was all over what amounted to a $4 per month raise. And the very fact that Barry's management actually invited us to see their factory strongly suggests that the conditions there are far above average. Many others in Cambodia and throughout Asia are far worse, like a factory making sneakers for ASICS, where a roof collapsed in 2013 and killed 2 workers and injured 7 others. The working conditions in the garment industry have gotten so bad that strikes by workers and clashes with the authorities are now almost routine. The government is starting to get worried that all this unrest will hurt business. In January 2014, police opened fire on demonstrating garment workers, killing at least 4. These riots threaten to destabilize Cambodia. And all this so we can spend a few dollars less on our t-shirts.
It's crazy when you go into a big retailer in America and you can find a hoodie for like $10. Like if you think about it, how could it be that cheap? The only way is that the people who are making the product are getting paid peanuts. And that's what's going on here.
Many of the sex workers pushed into garment jobs told us they didn't want to be rescued at all. The women we spoke to said the pay and conditions are actually better on the streets.
If you quit being a sex worker, would you go back to the garment industry?
And here's a sad bit of irony about Cambodia's rescue program. A number of studies have found that most of Cambodia's sex workers weren't victims of trafficking after all. For now, women are choosing prostitution over garment work. And that, more than anything, paints a very stark picture of what the reality is for Cambodia's girls and women.
La próxima semana, Vice News presenta. Vamos a Pakistán, uno de los países con mayor índice de violencia de género, para conocer el caso de un crimen de honor. Y después, vamos en busca de las medicinas del futuro en uno de los lugares más inusuales, el pelaje de los osos perezosos en la selva de Panamá.
So there goes the cure for cancer. Up a tree on the back of the slowest animal on earth.
Busca más documentales y noticias de todo el mundo en vicenews.com, en el canal de YouTube o nuestra cuenta de Facebook, Vice News en Español, o en este mismo espacio la próxima semana.